Welcome to today's subject, self-defense or legitimate defense, an extremely important legal concept. Self-defense is the right to protect yourself, your property, from another person, from unjustified attacks, using force to repel it. You've all heard about this, you've all seen it in the movies. It will exonerate you of criminal charges even if you've harmed the other person, maybe even killing them in defense of your own life in a very extreme case. This defense system exists in all legal systems, including even Sharia law, Muslim law. Because self-defense is so very effective, very strict conditions have been established that have to be met in front of a court of law. The first is the subjective condition, knowing that you have the right to defend yourself against an unjustified attack. This implies that you're exercising your statutory rights, that you know the law, which is very important, as opposed to just acting spontaneously. Each citizen must know the law of the country that they live in and exercise their rights within the limits of the law. Second of all, the attack must be illegal, i.e. not provoked by yourself. In case you're wondering, not all attacks are illegal. If, for example, a policeman tries to arrest or restrain you by force, the law allows him to do that within his functions. In fact, to resist this attack would be illegal. The third condition is the chronological condition. The attack must be imminent or ongoing. You can't, for example, run after an assailant after the attack has ended because you're feeling aggrieved by him and take out revenge. This would set much too dangerous a precedent. Therefore, it must be immediate. Fourth, subsidiarity. You're held to choose the least damaging course of action possible. But this is relative because with the fear that you're experiencing when you're attacked, you don't have time to think 100% calmly and clearly. But if there was some means of escape, that you could jump through a hole or you could scream all of a sudden and somebody could come to help you, it would have been better and you would be held to try to think of that option if possible. 5, proportionality, all important. So you have a right to fight off an attack using only means which are proportional to that attack. For example, you can use a stick against a gun, or at most a gun against a gun. You understand that. These conditions always have to be met cumulatively, which means that they all must be fulfilled in order for you to benefit from the system of defense. So now let's move on to some illustrative examples that are interesting. Some historical, some more recent. The Queen versus Dudley and Stevens in 1884. 4 men were shipwrecked in a lifeboat with no food and no water from more than 1,000 miles from land in a small lifeboat, and decided to kill and eat the youngest, who was 17 years old and he was in bad health and without defense. Their plea of self-defense was rejected by the 2 seamen actually who initiated and carried out the murder and finally ate him, because it was estimated that they were not under attack from him and he represented no form of danger to him. In another case in the same time period, because sailors had drawn straws and agreed to sacrifice themselves if they were the unlucky ones, the defense was successfully pleaded. Why? Because there was consent of the aggrieved party. Nowadays, it can be noted that consent would not justify killing somebody. The law has evolved, but at that time it made the act legal. Well, in the 1980s, I'm sure you've all heard of Bernard Goetz, a white man who shot at 4 young black men with an unlicensed gun, seriously wounding one of them. And his claim is that they were trying to steal from him or mug him. And he successfully pleaded self-defense and was exonerated of all charges except the possession and use of an illegal firearm. And for that he received some token sentence, which I don't think he even served. So he was able to convince the jurors that he was under a legal attack, that he knew he was exercising his rights to self-defense. I mean, he was carrying a gun, which he took out, and that no other course of action was possible. And almost unbelievably to many, that he had respected the condition of proportionality, although no weapons were found on his victims. He'd been the victim, then they turned into the victims. He became known as the subway vigilante, and he received huge amounts of support for his action in the press and the public from many people. A number of specialists and lawyers, however, were very deeply troubled and saw this verdict not so much as reflecting justice, but a paranoid mood in the public at New York at that time, and the jury, of course, has a certain latitude. In a more recent and very disturbing case, Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin in 2013 after following him and calling the police, saying that he believed this young man was up to no good, or something to that words. When apparently Trayvon Martin attacked him, Zimmerman claimed that he thought his life was in danger, or at least that he was in danger of suffering grievous bodily harm. He killed Trayvon Martin, and yet he was declared innocent of murder on the basis of self-defense, having used his handgun, which created a media outrage. Many people felt that there had been race discrimination in this crime, that his acquittal was unfair, and that if Trayvon Martin had been white, Zimmerman probably wouldn't have followed him and provoked him possibly into acting violently. It illustrates the stand your ground principle, which dates back to 1877 in America. And that principle states that if an aggressor was reasonably perceived as representing an imminent danger of death or of grave bodily harm, then the potential victim can use lethal force. Well, the appreciation of whether or not he provoked this attack is still up to the pundits, and whether or not he was actually in grave danger, and it remains unclear to many. So your task is know your rights, inform yourself what conditions exist in the law in your country, the conditions that I've outlined here, 1 to 5, so as to be certain to always act in a legal manner. Always seek the least damageable manner of protecting yourself and your children, your friends, and your family, or even a stranger in need, or your property. Remember that respecting human life and safety is a vital duty. So, thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, and leave your comments. And check out my related videos.